If you have ever stared at a list of stocks and felt your brain glaze over, you are not alone. Most people do not want a second job hunting for winners, tracking earnings calls, and refreshing charts. They want their money to grow while they live a normal life. That is why the S&P 500 has become the default home base for ordinary investors. It is the simplest way to own a piece of the largest, most resilient companies in the United States without picking stocks. And it lets you participate in their growth by doing almost nothing after you set it up. Lazy is the compliment here. The lazier your process, the more likely you are to stick with it long enough for compounding to do what hustle never could. The S&P 500 is an index, which is just a list. In this case, it is a curated list of 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the US, selected and maintained by a committee based on rules that favor size, profitability, and liquidity. When you buy an S&P 500 index fund, you are not buying one company. You are buying a tiny slice of hundreds: technology, healthcare, consumer goods, financials, industrials, energy, utilities, and more. If one company stumbles, another might surge. If one sector enters a winter, another may be in spring. The list changes over time as the economy changes. Companies that lose relevance are replaced by those that matter more. This quiet evolution is part of the magic. Without lifting a finger, your portfolio adapts to a living economy. You do not buy the index directly, you buy a fund that tracks it. That fund can be a mutual fund or an ETF. Mutual funds price once at the end of the day and are easy to automate inside retirement accounts. ETFs trade like stocks during the day and can be bought in any brokerage account, often with fractional shares. For a beginner, the distinction matters less than two other facts. The fund should follow the S&P 500 precisely, and the fee should be tiny. Fees are gravity. A difference of 0.5% a year looks small until you stretch it across decades. The lazy way is to choose a reputable, low-cost S&P 500 fund, set automatic contributions, and resist every urge to fiddle. The reason this approach works is compounding. When the companies inside the index earn profits, some of those profits show up as dividends, and the rest are reinvested to grow the business. Dividends you receive can be reinvested to buy more shares automatically, which then produce their own dividends. Price appreciation over time multiplies the effect. Compounding is slow to start and relentless later. 5 years can feel like a crawl, 15 years looks respectable, 30 years looks like you cheated. The apparent magic is just math given time without interference. That without interference part is where most people fail. They interrupt compounding to react to headlines, guess tops and bottoms, or pause contributions because a neighbor sounds confident. The lazy investor keeps contributing through noise and lets the index do the heavy lifting. Risk is the part beginners misunderstand. Owning the S&P 500 does not guarantee a smooth ride. The index has fallen sharply many times. It has taken years to recover from certain peaks. If you plan to sell in 6 months, you are gambling on the mood of the crowd. If you plan to hold for decades, you are riding the engine of corporate earnings growing with population, productivity, and innovation. The way to live with risk is to separate money by purpose. Cash you need soon belongs in safe places. Money you do not need for 5 to 10 years can be exposed to the volatility that historically paid you more. Lazy here means disciplined about timelines, not indifferent to them. Dollar cost averaging is the lazy investor's friend. Instead of trying to guess the best moment to buy, you buy on a schedule, every paycheck, every month, every quarter, no matter what. When prices are high, your contribution buys fewer shares. When prices are low, the same contribution buys more. Over time, your average purchase price becomes a blend that removes the pressure to be a profit. The feeling that you bought at the top fades when you know another contribution is coming next Friday. Boring wins. Schedules beat predictions. Taxes deserve respect because they can eat more than fees if you ignore them. Retirement accounts like 401ks and IRAs were designed to shelter compounding from annual taxation. Contributions can be pre-tax or after-tax depending on the account. Pre-tax lowers your taxable income today and lets the money grow untaxed until you withdraw in retirement. After-tax, Roth, does not lower this year's taxes, but the growth comes out tax-free later if rules are followed. The lazy path is to automate contributions to the account that matches your situation and to choose the S&P 500 fund inside it. If you invest in a regular brokerage account, the S&P 500 is still tax efficient because it has low turnover. Funds that buy and sell less generate fewer taxable events, but you should still plan for dividends and the possibility of capital gains when you sell. None of this requires wizardry. It requires a decision once and a calendar doing the rest. Asset allocation is the fancy term for how you split your money across different buckets. An S&P 500 fund is your US large cap bucket. Many people stop there and do just fine. Others add a total international fund for diversification, a total US bond fund for stability, or a small cap fund for a bit more growth. A lazy allocation might be a simple 80-20 split between stocks and bonds when you're young, drifting toward more bonds as you approach a time when you'll need the money. The precise numbers are less important than two rules. Choose a mix you can sleep with in a downturn and change it on a schedule rather than in reaction to fear. If every 10% dip sends you hunting for sell buttons, you are overexposed. Reduce the stock slice so that you can live with the ride and keep contribution. Survival is the compounding strategy most beginners overlook. Rebalancing is another quiet habit that keeps a lazy plan on track. Over time, parts of your portfolio will grow faster than others. If stocks run hot, your 80-20 becomes 85-50. Rebalancing pushes you to sell a little of what grew and buy a little of what lagged to restore the target. Doing this once or twice a year, or as part of your retirement plan's automatic features, is enough. Rebalancing is the opposite of chasing winners. It is a discipline that enforces buy low, sell high without drama. It also prevents your risk from drifting higher than you intended. The lazy investor writes rebalancing into the calendar or lets the retirement plan do it silently in the background. Behavior is the whole game. Most investors do worse than the funds they own because they buy after excitement and sell after fear. The S&P 500 is not a mood ring, but people treat it like one. You will see headlines predicting doom and headlines promising a new era. You will hear smart people disagree. If you can accept that this noise is the price of admission, you can stop paying it with your results. The lazy way is to set 3 truths in stone. You are not smarter than the market in the short run, and you don't need to be. Time in the market matters more than timing the market. And contribution rate is the lever you control. Protect your contribution, automate it, and ignore the rest as if it were weather. Bring an umbrella when it rains, keep walking. Getting started is simpler than it feels. You open a retirement account if your employer offers one, or an IRA if they don't. You find the S&P 100 option in the plan's menu, often labeled clearly with 500 index in the name. You set a percentage of each paycheck to flow into that choice. If you have room in your budget later, you open a standard brokerage account at a reputable firm and set a small monthly transfer to an S&P 500 ETF there as well. You turn on dividend reinvestment. You write down your contribution percentages and review them every 6 months or after a raise. You avoid the temptation to stop contributions during bad news. You allow yourself one portfolio check per month if you must. You give it years, not days, to show you what it can do. Common myths deserve a quick sweep. One is that the S&P 500 is too concentrated because the largest companies have heavy weight. It is true that the top names carry more influence, but the index still holds hundreds of other companies that benefit when the economy grows. Another myth is that it is too late after a rally, as if markets run on a timetable. Markets incorporate new information continuously. A high price reflects high expectations. It does not tell you what tomorrow brings. The antidote to both myths is the same. Buy on a schedule indifferent to the news, and size your stock exposure so you can keep that schedule through storms. The market has rewarded patient owners of broad, low-cost funds over long periods, and the owners who captured those rewards were the ones who did not flinch themselves out of position.
Volatility is easier to endure when you understand what you own. Inside the S&P 500 are companies that sell essentials and luxuries, that make chips and package snacks, that operate hospitals and build software, that haul goods and insure risks. Some will falter, some will merge, some will surprise. As a group, they have historically moved upward with the productive capacity of the country, interrupted by recessions, wars, panics, manias, and policy shifts. Your job is to be present for the upward stretches and unbothered during the interruptions. The lazy investor is not careless. The lazy investor is stubborn about staying seated on the compounding ride. Income from an S&P 500 fund comes in two flavors: dividends and price appreciation. Dividends are the quarterly thank you notes from companies sharing a slice of profits. They tend to grow over long stretches as earnings grow, though not every quarter and not at the same rate for every company. Price appreciation reflects the market's evolving view of what those companies are worth, a view that zigzags wildly in short windows and trends upward as profits and cash flows expand. Reinvesting dividends allows you to own more pieces without adding cash. In retirement, you can redirect dividends to your checking account for spending while deciding what portion of shares to sell each year. The lazy strategy becomes the flexible strategy when your life stage changes. The machine you built to buy shares becomes the machine that sells them to you in portions that fund your living. International diversification is a reasonable extension many lazy investors consider once they have the S&P 500 humming. Owning a total international fund spreads your bets across developed and emerging markets. Some decades the US leads, some decades international markets catch up or surpass. You do not need to pick which decade you are in. You can own both and adjust the split to taste. Some choose 70% US, 30% international. Others prefer 60-40 or the reverse. The point is not to discover the perfect ratio. The point is to make a choice simple enough to keep while remembering that the S&P 500 already includes companies that earn a large share of their revenue overseas. Global exposure is not binary. It is a gradient you can nudge. Bonds belong in the lazy plan when stability matters. A bond fund will not deliver the same long-term growth as stocks, but it cushions drops and offers a place to draw from in years when stocks are down. If your time horizon is long and your stomach is strong, you can hold few or no bonds and accept that the ride will be rough sometimes. If the sight of a 30% decline would make you abandon the plan, you include bonds so that a bad year feels survivable. The purpose of bonds in a lazy portfolio is not excitement, it is emotional engineering. You are designing a portfolio you will not quit. Automating raises is how the lazy investor quietly accelerates. Each time your income increases, you increase your contribution percentage before the new paycheck arrives. If you do this even half the time, your savings rate will climb without your lifestyle noticing much. Windfalls follow a rule you write once: a slice for joy, a slice for generosity, the rest to the machine. This is not austerity, it is choreography. You are telling your money where to dance before the music starts. There are moments when the lazy strategy should pause or adjust. If you do not have a basic emergency fund, prioritize cash first so you do not become a forced seller during a job loss or a health scare. If you carry high interest debt, pay it down aggressively while making at least a small automatic investment so the habit forms. If your job is tied tightly to the fortunes of a single sector, you might prefer a broader total market fund or a dash of international to reduce concentration risk. None of these are contradictions to the S&P 500 strategy. They are context. Lazy does not mean oblivious. It means you take care of first things first and then let the index do its quiet work. Estate and beneficiary details are the dusty corners of a plan that can undo years of good behavior if ignored. Once you have an account in place, add beneficiaries so assets transfer cleanly if something happens to you. Keep a secure note with account locations and logins stored in a password manager. Consider a simple will, even if you feel young and invincible. The lazy investor protects the machine from administrative chaos. A plan that runs itself should be runnable by someone else if needed. What do you do during a crash? The same thing you do during a boom. You contribute on schedule. You rebalance if your allocation drifts. You avoid changing your plan in the heat of emotion. If you can't sleep, that is a signal about allocation, not about markets. Adjust after the storm passes, not in the middle of it. Crashes feel like they will last forever until they don't. Booms feel like they will last forever until they don't. The only constant is your process. The lazy way is not a trick to avoid feelings. It is a structure that holds you steady while your feelings come and go. Eventually, you will arrive at a point where the machine you built is larger than your contributions. The portfolio's growth in a year may exceed what you added. This is where the lazy strategy shows its force. Your effort matters less than your presence. You become the caretaker of a compounding engine that runs on corporate profits, human ingenuity, and global demand. You tend it by checking a few numbers on a schedule, by adjusting a dial once in a while, by ignoring chatter that once made you jittery. The rest of your attention returns to your craft, your people, your health, your life. If all of this sounds almost disappointingly simple, that is the point. The S&P 500 for beginners is not a puzzle to solve. It is a road to walk. You select a low-cost fund, you set automatic contributions, you size your exposure so that you can stay put in storms. You add a bond fund or an international fund if that helps you sleep. You rebalance on a calendar. You reinvest dividends until you need them. You protect the machine with cash for emergencies and with good digital hygiene. You let decades pass. At family events, you listen politely to stock tips and keep your hands off the wheel. Wealth is not a frantic sprint toward cleverness. It is a quiet partnership with the productive work of thousands of companies you will never meet, managed by a process that asks almost nothing of you beyond patience. The lazy way to build wealth is not lazy at all. It is disciplined simplicity. It is the humility to accept that broad ownership and steady contributions beat heroes, and it is the courage to keep going when the screen is red. The S&P 500 does not promise a straight line. It promises exposure to the largest engine of value creation inside the US economy. If you wire your life so that owning that engine is easy and automatic, you give your future self the gift of compounding without drama. That is the beginner's edge. You have not yet learned the bad habit of meddling. Set it up, step aside, let time work.